This has been such a tough year for so many people, especially for our sports enthusiasts. We know that there's been so many back and forth, with so many of the high school teams and junior high schools, but there's another group of athletes that will be excited to get back in the game. Aaron Mills joins us now. He's the Senior Director for the Marketing and Communications for the Special Olympics of Michigan. Aaron, we're so happy to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've got some, as you said, it's been kind of a tough time, over the past year plus for us, but, things are looking up. So I'm excited to chat about what we got going on.
So that's great. But can we kind of start back in the beginning? What has it been like? Because there's been so many pauses and starts and pauses and starts. It's confusing for all of us.
It really is. And, for us, we have gone our last kind of state level competition that we've done. Well, first I'll back up. We've got around 20,000 children and adults with intellectual disabilities across the entire state who take part in our programming throughout the year. And so, some of them are doing things at the local level. Some of them are doing them at the state level, national, world level. And so, we have a lot of different athletes and people who really kind of rely on our programming, not just because of the love of sport, but everything else that comes along with it. And so, last 2020 of, early March, we were getting ready for our state basketball finals, and we're looking at things. And we're going, all right, well, I think we're gonna have to pump the brakes here a little bit, And so we ended up, pausing our basketball. And then from there, obviously the world realized what was going on. And so things really kind of changed for us. Our state summer games last year were canceled for the first time ever. And, we've just kind of really had to adapt and figure out, well, how can we still provide programming for our athletes without having in person, right? And so, that's been a challenge we've had to overcome this past year plus. And we're finally kind of getting back into the swing of things after doing a lot of virtual events and at-home trainings and, Zoom calls just to kind of get that interaction between people, just kind of hang out. And, it's been rough, but we are excited to kind of get back into the swing of things here.
So with that, how did the virtual training go?
Yeah, it was a learning experience for sure, right? Because at first we're like, okay, so how are we going to reach as many people as possible? And so, our sports team came up with a great game plan of, we recorded videos on making sure that we were, here's how you can do a 100-meter dash in your yard. Here's how you can do, a Frisbee toss or, basketball drills or, different events that we could come up with, and then adapting them for the fall. We're going to do flag football stuff, or we're going to do soccer drills in between cones, and just coming up with different ways to make sure that our athletes are staying active. Because, for a lot of our population, Special Olympics, so we're a sports organization first, but really we use sports as a vehicle for change throughout the communities, for our athletes' lives, and really pushing the message of inclusion everywhere. And so, yeah, it stinks that we weren't able to do sports, but using sports is, like I said, just the vehicle to helping provide that change. And, our athletes really got hit hard with this whole, isolation, not getting to be a part of everything. And I will say one, not necessarily good thing, but one more relatable thing that came out of this whole, during the height of the pandemic is that, when everyone's at home and they're saying, I'm bummed out. I can't, see my family or my friends, or I'm not working daily interaction with my coworkers. You're feeling that loneliness and that isolation. That's really, everyday life for a lot of our athletes. And so, Special Olympics gives them a chance to get out of that and be a part of society and show everybody that they're a part of normal society. And, they should be looked at for their abilities and not their disabilities. And, it really kind of gave a lot of people some inward looking perspective on, kind of being able to relate to our athletes a little better.
And so with that, I see that InPerson Sports is going to be resuming, or it actually did on May 3rd. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. It's one of those things where we're kind of taking it a little bit at a time. Some So we break the state down into like 36 little area programs across the state, almost like school districts would be broken down throughout the state. And so everybody's different on how fast they're getting back to it or how, ready they are to do different sports. And so, it'll, maybe in the Western UP, maybe they're a little more ready to go than somebody in downtown Detroit or somewhere else where maybe it's a little higher population and there's a little slower to get back with the COVID numbers, kind of depending on how things are. So, we're taking things a little bit at a time, but, we have some local programs who have been practicing, they're getting ready to get back to it. And, we have on our calendar that mid-July, we're going to have a track and field event at Central Michigan University. We're going to have a bocce event at 3 or 4 different locations across the state. So, we're working hard to make sure we have a safe game plan that when we do get back into competing in person, that we're doing so safely as well.
Aaron Mills with us here on the MegaCast. He's with Special Olympics Michigan. And Aaron, this has been hard for us to try to figure out to wear a mask, don't wear a mask, get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. How has it been, or what's it been like for your team members to try to relay this message to your athletes, because it's changing all the time?
Yeah, and it's been hard. We've had a handful of key volunteers and athletes who have contracted COVID, some that have passed away due to COVID. And so, while we can't require people to be vaccinated if they're going to compete or be volunteers, we do strongly encourage it, just to kind of, help make things as safe as possible for people. And, it's really just kind of getting that information out to people just so they understand it, just so they better understand to be able to make that choice of what, they want to do. Because, some of our athletes are, they're in group homes or they're, out on their own, or they might not have a lot of interaction, or they might not be tech savvy. And so it's just making sure that they've got, the proper unbiased information that they can kind of help make those choices for themselves moving forward.
I anticipate this year is going to be so exciting as we emerge out of the pandemic. And obviously we do know now, some of the restrictions are starting to loosen, especially around sports. It's going to be an exciting year for your athletes.
It is, I've had a number of the past year, the amount of Facebook messages and text messages and daily and weekly phone calls I get from our athletes has just gone up astronomically. And one, it's great to continue to chat with them, but two, it's great to know that they're still so psyched to get back to it. Because, as a staff, we've got around 35, 40 paid staff, plus, thousands of volunteers across the state that make this entire organization function. And we're ready. Like, we've been planning, we are ready so that when, July comes around and, these kind of slower sections as we're getting ready to get back into the return to activities, that when the time comes and we are ready to get back to it, we're going to make sure that our athletes are going to be able to pick right back up where they left off and have an amazing time.
Because it really is about community and that interaction, being around people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I came to Special Olympics 8 years ago. I kind of knew what Special Olympics was, but I didn't know what Special Olympics was. It's one of those things where you know what it is, but you don't really know what it is until you get there, right? And it's just kind of being a part of one of those very first events that you show up to as a volunteer, just as a spectator, and you see it and you just go, oh, I get it. I am in. And so, it just takes one time to get hooked. And, we're a grassroots organization. Like I said, we've got 35, 40 staff to help put on programming for 20,000 athletes. And so we can't do it on our own. And so, we rely heavily on our volunteers, and that's an extremely important part of it. And again, it's one of those where we need to make sure our athletes are safe, and our volunteers, we need to make sure that they feel safe coming back too. So it's a little juggling effort, but one thing I will say that has been very helpful throughout all this is all of our donors, going from individual donors to companies and organizations who have been with us for years. They've been supporting us throughout the pandemic. They didn't just go, oh, you're not doing summer games this year. Oh, you're not doing basketball finals this year. I'm out. It was one of those where people believe in the mission, and they know that, if they're supporting it now, they're making sure that we will be ready to go when it's game time, and it's about game time.
That is so great to hear. And with that too, you mentioned volunteers. How are you doing on that front?
Yeah. So yeah, we will see. That's the question, right? So it's one of those where at first we're going to be a little limited on the amount of volunteers we can have come back. So, I mean, normally a state summer games would have 3,000 athletes and 3,000 volunteers, and it'd be a multi-day event, and we'd have opening ceremonies. It'd be the craziest thing you've ever seen. But so it's going to be a lot smaller scale this year. It'll probably just be, 100, couple hundred athletes and limited volunteers in those ranges, where we'll probably rely on some of those more veteran volunteers, just to kind of get them back. But, the volunteer need will be there for sure, because, if we realize, oh, we have enough athletes that want to play soccer this year and we don't have people that can coach soccer or referee soccer, well, then we can't have soccer. So
Aaron Mills with us here on the MegaCast. He's the Senior Director for Marketing and Communications for Special Olympics Michigan. And tell us more about that, Aaron. What is it like behind the scenes to try to not only recognize the athletes who wants to play, but which sport they want to play, and then trying to come up with the teams?
Yep. And it really varies. You'll see a lot of local programs will kind of change their sports that they offer throughout the year. We offer 26 sports throughout the entire state during the year. And some areas will just kind of focus on a couple depending on what the interest is. And then, an area like Detroit or Grand Rapids, Metro Detroit or Grand Rapids, they'll probably be offering 26 sports, where they're offering everything from skiing to, snowshoeing and basketball and swimming and kayaking and everything. And, you go up a little further north and maybe they're just kind of focused on maybe some skiing or some basketball or whatever it is. So it kind of varies across the state, but we do our best, thanks to our volunteers, to make sure that whatever sports there is a need for, that we try to do our best to make sure that we can provide that for our athletes.
So the in-person sports training has resumed in person. What is that? How does that work?
Yeah. So locally we have coaches, as well as some kind of directors who are in charge of our local programs as well. And so they reach out to the families. We have to, just like a high school sport, we make sure that all their paperwork's up to date. They've got their up-to-date physicals, and, they're completely checked out. And we're going to be, doing temperature checks and all sorts of things at practices to make sure that we're good to go. And so, it's getting rolled out, like I said, kind of slowly and at different phases across the state. And hopefully here in mid-July, we'll kind of see that come to a fruition here with some of our events, because this is actually a qualifying year for Special Olympics events to qualify for the next national games in 2022 in Orlando. And so at our event here, our track and field event in July, we'll have a number of athletes that will have a chance to qualify to compete in the national games there. We're going to be looking for a basketball team later this year. So there's a handful of things that we need to make sure we can try to get these sports going so that we can have Michigan representing at the national games next year.
Well, we need to have Michigan representing.
Yeah, for sure. We had a team from Pontiac that competed in the last USA Games that we saw, and those took place in Seattle a couple of years ago. And they got some major coverage on ESPN. And Andre Drummond, when he was on the Pistons, he got hooked up with them. He surprised them at their practice. He got them all new Nike gear. Like, it was pretty amazing. So, the fact that, we have a chance to kind of give these chances to our athletes to compete on a national stage and even a world stage is pretty mind-boggling.
That is, we love those stories. That's so great. And Aaron, if I can ask, because at the top of the interview, you had mentioned the importance of inclusion. Tell us more about that, because that's really a big part of what you're about.
It really is. And, and we say that, when I'm, as a marketing guy, they always ask about, what's your ROI? What's your return on investment? And I tell people, well, I'm not pushing return on investment. I'm pushing the return on inclusion. I need to know, what are we doing to help make Michigan better? Not just for our athletes, but in our communities, just a better understanding. And that's really a message that, everybody should want to get behind. And so part of the reason we're doing that, we're doing it through our sports, but we also have a school program called Unified Champion Schools, where we're in hundreds of schools across the state. And it's an inclusive program that brings together students with and without intellectual disabilities. And, it's really changing the lives of the students from those younger ages in those K K through 12 schools, just to kind of give them more experiences together so they can see the similarities between each other from an earlier age and just realize, hey, we've all got the same goals. Oh, you want to get married someday too? Oh yeah, me too. Oh, your job's kind of annoying. Well, guess what? Mine is too. Yeah. Well, we're teenagers. It's fine. Like, I get it. So it's just kind of finding that understanding between each other that really is going to help kind of push this message of inclusion across the state.
I love that, especially when we're talking about, from a young age with kids. Sometimes they're our best teachers. They really are.
Yeah, it's true. We have a young athletes program for the 2 to 7-year-olds, and it really just kind of gives those younger kids a chance. We don't separate them from two to 7. You can come out with or without intellectual disabilities, play together, and heck, they don't know. They're just throwing a ball back and forth or running around, and you show everybody that you're all the same at the same age when you're that young, and it really pays off as you're getting older.
So tell us more. You have a pledge, the Inclusion Pledge. Is that for everyone to sign?
Yeah. So online, we do have an inclusion pledge that people can sign to just kind of pledge that they believe in inclusion. They believe that, using derogatory terms like the R word, is not, the proper way to conduct yourself, and that you'll do everything you can to just kind of spread that message of positivity across the board. And, there are thousands of people across the state every year who are, just kind of pledging, making sure that everybody knows, yep, I do believe in this message. I'm not just saying it, but I'm living it.
I love that. Erin Mills with the Senior Director for the Marketing and Communications for Special Olympics of Michigan. Erin, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we let you go?
Yeah, we're excited to get back to it. I said that, and stay tuned to us because we've got some major things going on in Special Olympics. Little teaser for you. So we are getting ready to make plans to have the largest Special Olympics facility in the world in Grand Rapids. And we are also getting ready sometime in the next month or so to announce a major international tournament coming to Michigan, which will actually be the first international tournament for Special Olympics that the state has hosted since 1975. So we've got some major things in the works, and it's really going to put Michigan front and center here on spreading the word of inclusion and showing people, why we are an amazing state to live in.
Well, we so appreciate that. We'll definitely have you back on when some of those things happen. I will say, Erin, I can tell, though, that you love your job. You are just bursting with enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where before I worked at Special Olympics, I was in local TV, and I did that for about 10 years. And I love my job. It was great. But it's just one of those where it's so easy to have a passion. You really see the fruits of your labor every single day. Any little thing you do has ripple effects everywhere. And so, I feel it, our volunteers feel it. And like I said, it's one of those deals where, if you don't know what Special Olympics is, just come on out once we get our events going and you'll get it.
Well, we look forward to the return of the events. So Erin Mills, thank you again for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.